Welcome to Expedition Self on OMTimes Radio with lifelong learner, entrepreneur, and creator of the worlds of Expedition Self, Sam Parrotto. Sam shares 4 decades of studying, guiding, and teaching how to go inside so we can build an incredibly powerful, dynamic, and validating relationship with the self. Expedition Self is laced with stellar, unexpected insights about what it means to be human. Listen now and ignite your self-development process with Sam Parrotto.
Well, good evening. I'm so glad you're here with me tonight. I'm Sam Parrotto. I'm the host of Expedition Self, and tonight I'm going to talk about a subject that everyone feels. There is no one who is exempt from experiencing it. Heartbreak. A story you told in millions of ways through all the ages of humanness at play in the real world. and to help me in this conversation, I've enlisted the David Whyte, unfortunately not in person, but through his essay called Heartbreak, that's out of his book Consolations. If you haven't read it or gotten a hold of it, I hope after tonight you might actually feel motivated to do it. And that's not a plug because I have an affiliate relationship with him. It's just, I just think it's an awesome, support for growth and development. Anyway, if you don't know about him, please go explore his work. It's deep. It's very compelling. And the way he writes, it causes the reader or listener or whatever to follow a series of tiny breadcrumbs into completely really uncharted territory within their own psyches and their own understanding. And truly, I think his work is extraordinary, and the person he is a match for it. He spells his last name Whyte, in case you want to Google him. Oh, and one more thing. He often offers writing sprints for like 3 or 4 weeks, and he teams up with a friend or colleagues, and they blend these talks with these extraordinary videos. The last one I watched was a series in Ireland, really, really breathtaking, and it helps to open the creative space within the self so much. Anyway, you can tell I love his work, and I would love it if you checked it out. And was excited when I pull his book out periodically, and I landed on this, and I thought, I have to do the show. So anyway, I was telling my significant other, who is the person I referred to in my 2-part series that I did a while ago about how to have a raging love affair about tonight's topic. And him being totally him, he said, let me just give you a little bit of piece that you can use. Heartbreak is like a football game. I'm sure I'm not going to do this as well as he would have, but someone's always trying to steal it or kick it into the end zone. So it made me laugh, but it also fit how I think we often think about our hearts and how they're up for grabs by others and how hard we try to protect or defend them and the idea that someone steals them. So, I don't know. I just thought it was funny. So for tonight, I'm going to read you excerpts of David Whyte's essay and then talk a bit about how it connects with the growth work that I always talk about in terms of going inside and how that goes along with heartbreak. So as part of some background with me, I did a show called The Idea of Love about 1.5 years back. And I encourage you to listen to it if you're an avid student of love or if your interest is piqued this evening. And it's going to be running next week because I won't be live. And so if you want to just tune in at the same time, you can hear it. And it's called The Idea of Love. So in 2014, in the middle of my marriage transition, I woke up one Sunday morning, I guess it was around 6 a.m., like not what I usually do. And I got up and I went downstairs because I had this kind of download happening, right? And I ended up writing my own essay about what I think love is. So an hour later, I had the root of a mini book that I never published, but the essence of it had to do with how love is present in all things, even if they don't feel loving or seem loving. And so when I read David's thoughts on heartbreak this week again, it brought me back to my original essay. The the bottom line is that the study of love is one of my lifelong investigations. Questions like, why didn't someone love someone else? What actually got in the way of that relationship? Why did that project or that job that they loved so much on the first day, did they end up hating by the time they left? What is the difference between romantic love that has physical, right, lust and things attached, and everyday love? And did that act that seemed unloving actually produce forward movement that the person would have never chosen if not for the push, and if not for a push that was distasteful? Again, to look through a different lens about it. So this take on heartbreak is another slice or wafer of the truth about love, because in all that we love, there is heartbreak. In all that we love, there's heartbreak. So this is a live call-in show. I encourage and invite and look forward to calling in and sharing your thoughts or questions with me. The number is 202-570-7057. And for those of you who are picking the show up at a time other than when we're live, we run at 8 p.m. on Tuesday evenings, Eastern Standard Time. And FYI, we'll be running pre-recorded shows for the next 2 Tuesdays after this. I already mentioned the one, which is next week. You can listen to The Idea of Love. But if you want to catch it, that's a good time. And then I'll be back on Tuesday, September 5th at this time at 8 p.m. for the next live show. So, okay, a couple of disclaimers or setup ideas. As you listen this evening, see if you can notice your perception of heartbreak shifting and opening, and being less about boxing it in and framing it up in the way you currently do. See if you can, loosen your hold on it and allow it to move into a wider interpretation within yourself. And also, I just want to say, this is a disclaimer part. This show is very full of content and ideas. And I've had lots of people say to me, I lose you at about 10 minutes in because I start thinking about something else. That is really fine all the time, but it's especially fine tonight. Do not pressure yourself if it feels like too much. You can just turn it off and listen to the next section on another day, rather than get overwhelmed by it, because your psyche is responding. And that's actually what I care about much more than whether you listen to the whole show. And I think it could feel like a lot to think about. And experientially, your own heartbreaks and losses may surface. So, all right. So basically, I'm going to read the paragraph. I'm going to give you some comments. And then I'm going to reread the paragraph again for you. All right. Heartbreak is unpreventable. The natural outcome of caring for people and things over which we have no control, of holding in our affections those who inevitably move beyond our line of sight. Even the longest marriage has had its heart broken many times, just in the many acts of staying together. Heartbreak does mean you cared about something or someone. And this idea that we get heartbroken as an action or choice or event demonstrates to us that we are not in control of that thing we cared about. Doesn't this speak to the very core of what we all grapple with? I don't know. I think the idea that heartbreak is the inevitable outcome of our caring and controlling natures. Yeah, it occurred to me that when those two ideas were placed in the same paragraph, the actual experience of heartbreak, which I connect with in my body, had a much bigger context through which I could relate with it. Because beyond learning about love, aren't we all faced? I mean, isn't that what a lot of the mystical text is about, and the wisdom conversations? We're faced with surrendering to the idea that we are not in control as much as we attempt to be so. And this idea of surrendering and letting things be, like, isn't this a life lesson we're confronted with over and over? There was another sentence that really struck me, and that was when he says, those who inevitably move beyond our line of sight. How long, this is my question, how long did it take you to realize that people and things and projects that we care about actually come in and out of our life? It took me a long time. I stubbornly did not want it to be true. Like, when did it dawn on you that life is not a fixed theater and that the players on the stage do not stay for every act? And if you got that far, did you ever think about how you have wired your life where you contain yourself in a particular way or behave in a certain way to keep people in it or situations in it, even if there are issues that would have it go another way? And in this moment, I just want to do a little outtake. Welcome, hello, survival based thinking, right? It keeps everything in place so we don't have to feel heartbreak, but we still do, right? So I'm going to read this again for you, and we'll go on to the next paragraph. Heartbreak is unpreventable. The natural outcome of caring for people and things over which we have no control, of holding in our affections those who inevitably move beyond our line of sight. Even the longest marriage has had its heart broken many times, just in the many acts of staying together. Awesome. Right? Just you breathe it in, right? Just let this whole conversation like make its way through your being and your body and your breath and your muscles relaxing or tensing. All right, so here's the next paragraph. Heartbreak begins the moment we are asked to let go, but cannot. In other words, it colors and inhabits and magnifies each and every day. Heartbreak is not a visitation, but a path that human beings follow through even the most average life. Heartbreak is an indication of our sincerity, in a love relationship, in a life's work, in trying to learn a musical instrument, in the attempt to shape a better, more generous self. Heartbreak is the beautifully helpless side of love and affection, and is just as much an essence and emblem of care as the spiritual athlete's quick but abstract ability to let go. Heartbreak has its own way of inhabiting time and its own beautiful and trying patience in coming and going. Its own beautiful and trying patience in coming and going. So here, to me, he's saying heartbreak doesn't just drop by periodically. No, it's actually a path we're following because of all we care about. And if we're going to be invested in life, in loving, in being fully present, then we're actually following the path of heartbreak. And then he says, it's really an indication of our sincerity in something. So you could say that someone who doesn't get heartbroken may have limited themselves from feeling. And I talk about this all the time, right? How people just don't want to feel emotions. They want to think them or avoid them. And of course, this, if we connect it, is the path of trying to avoid the very heartbreak that must come if we give of our hearts. So as he says, shaping a better, more generous self. Well, this would seem counterintuitive, actually, because so often, right, when someone gets heartbroken and can't work through it, they become actually less generous, more withheld, right? More on the side of bitter, potentially, and resentful. And they offer up closed doors for others to knock upon. So I thought that was intriguing. And there's one more piece I want to mention out of this paragraph, and that is that heartbreak has its own way of inhabiting time. Is this the most frustrating thing when you feel your heart cracking and hurting and feeling the sadness wrung out of every pore in your body, that heartbreak comes and goes on its own terms? It does not leave until it leaves, till it's done. You know, I think about the times I have been working and working to get free of it, wrangled around my neck and seemingly holding me against my will. And it still didn't go until I let go of whatever I was holding on to, which half the time I had no idea what that was, even though I thought I did. And that always took longer than I realized. So I just really love that. It takes its own time. It's on its own terms. All right, we're going to go to break. When we come back, I've got just one more thing I want to say about this excerpt, and then we'll keep learning about heartbreak.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. ascendinghearts.com.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
If I could be you,
and you could be me for just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out, and for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org, brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
All right, we are back. I'm Sam Parrotto, and you're listening to Expedition Self. Our topic this evening is heartbreak. And if you missed the first section, basically what I'm doing is reading excerpts out of David Whyte's essay about heartbreak, and then talking about it in the context of what it actually means for our own growth work and how to go inside. So there was one more thing I wanted to mention on that last section, which is that the trickster, you know, when we're talking about heartbreak, because I think the trickster is, you know, very alive in all of us, can attempt in the middle of a heartbreak to convince us we didn't care that much, right? And in the attempt of that, it's like trying to ice up, freeze up, right? So that we don't have to actually feel. And it can really do all that rationalizing and judging and blaming, right? To suggest that it isn't that big of a loss. You know, I just had somebody a couple days ago say, well, you know, I knew we weren't right for each other when, 2 months before I married him. And of course, this is after a 38-year marriage, right? And I just feel like that's the trickster who tries to get us to suck it up, right? Deal with real life when What's underneath is a heartbreak that has not been healed. It's still seeping in the background, and at some level we're trying to avoid. So I'm going to read that excerpt now for you, and after we've talked about it, and let you hear it in whole. Heartbreak begins the moment we are asked to let go, but cannot. In other words, it colors and inhabits and magnifies each and every day. Heartbreak is not a visitation, but a path that human beings follow through even the most average life. Heartbreak is an indication of our sincerity in a love relationship, in a life's work, in trying to learn a musical instrument, in the attempt to shape a better, more generous self. Heartbreak is the beautifully helpless side of love and affection, and is just as much an essence and emblem of care as the spiritual athlete's quick but abstract ability to let go. Heartbreak has its own way of inhabiting time and its own beautiful and trying patience in coming and going. And now the next paragraph. Heartbreak is how we mature. Yet we use the word heartbreak as if it only occurs when things have gone wrong. An unrequited love, a shattered dream, a child lost before their time. Heartbreak, we hope, is something we can avoid, something to guard against, a chasm to be carefully looked for and then walked around. The hope is to find a way to place our feet where the elemental forces of life will keep us in the manner to which we want to be accustomed, and which will keep us from the losses that all other human beings have experienced, without exception, since the beginning of conscious time. But heartbreak may be the very essence of being human, of being on the journey from here to there, and of coming to care deeply for what we find along the way. This, to me, is true. Heartbreak is how we mature. But for most of us, it looks like an undesirable way to mature, an avoidable one, right? A way we could sidestep if we just made better choices. Again, right? Better control, there it is. And because it hurts to feel heartbreak, because it's so intensely sensory based, we really would like to just never see it, right? So this idea that we equate something going wrong in ourselves and with our lives with heartbreak, when it's actually essential to our evolving selves. Well, this creates a polarity, a kind of power dynamic, push, pull, with the very source of where we might find future peace and the development of skills that give us the capacity to deal with our lives in creatively, empowered ways where we feel able, right? And of course, he goes on, right? Heartbreak is something to walk around, like a chasm we don't want to fall into. I thought about this a lot when I read it. And of course, I pictured this chasm, right? It's so true. It's like this pit of HELL that seems like a big FAIL, right? And one that has physically debilitating consequences. You know, it'll drain my energy and my motivation, right? Of course I want to walk around it. Truly, don't we actually see heartbreak as a bad thing for us? And yet, he's saying it's essential to our growth. And I want to say, I think I'm pretty sure I agree with this. So the next thing actually kind of made me smile, which is we hope. Now, listen, this is really interesting, right? We hope to find a place where we can plant ourselves so that the heartbreak that affects your friend and your sister and your grandparent and your son and your coworker and your whoever, your cousin, won't touch you. That you'll, in some very clever, right, self-prideful way, outsmart the whole of life and be the one person who escapes heartbreak. Yeah. I've wired things that way and actually been sometimes judgmental when people and myself, seem to choose scenarios that look like they're so obviously going to bring heartbreak. So it set me back a bit to think about it. Like, who the heck am I to think that I can outsmart one of the very centerpieces of being human that no one escapes, but I'm going to. It's just super, super interesting. And lastly, in this paragraph, he talks about how heartbreak is the very essence of knowing we're going from here to there. And while we're doing that, it helps us to really get clear about what we care deeply and what we don't. I was thinking of this through that scoreboard idea, football game, right? It's like you can see the scoreboard lit up there. It's like heartbreak 10, uncaring 27. If you don't feel heartbreak about something that somebody else might feel heartbreak about, or if you do feel heartbreak about something, well, it helps you to understand what does matter to you, right? And this is one of those key elements of growth work that's important, right, to the activity of being in growth work, which is this idea that the primary focus, the goal, the motivation of it is to learn about yourself experientially. Well, heartbreak, you could consider heartbreak your sidekick or your muse or your wing person, right? Helping to show you what really does matter and where you want to invest yourself and what doesn't. And there's a subtle piece in here is that you can also notice when you can't feel heartbreak in places that you think make sense to, or you notice you might have years ago. It helps you know where to go do your own cave work, to go inside in a deeper way. I can tell you, I never thought of heartbreak that way, right? As being a useful and very helpful friend, pointing me towards more self-understanding just by function of it existing, right? I thought about heartbreak as, that's when you go help yourself work through it, right? Kind of more like a process of it, right? But not just this learning how to be my sadness and pain emotionally in my body, right? But actually just to say, heartbreak 2, uncaring 5, right? Just to even utilize it kind of as a personal metric. And I thought it was kind of a cool idea. So I'm going to read it again, the whole paragraph, now that I've talked about it. Heartbreak is how we mature. Yet we use the word heartbreak as if it only occurs when things have gone wrong. An unrequited love, a shattered dream, a child lost before their time. Heartbreak, we hope, is something we can avoid, something to guard against, a chasm to be carefully looked for and then walked around. The hope is to find a way to place our feet where the elemental forces of life will keep us in the manner to which we want to be accustomed, and which will keep us from the losses that all other human beings have experienced, without exception since the beginning of conscious time. But heartbreak may be the very essence of being human, of being on the journey from here to there, and of coming to care deeply for what we find along the way. All right. Well, I'm hoping right now, like you're staying with me up to this moment, again, if that's what you're wanting to do, and that you're noticing your idea, your concept of heartbreak starting to move itself to the left, to just change angles on you. You may also be finding that certain heartbreaks are appearing for you. Tonight, you may dream about a heartbreak, right? Is that because we're taking a lot of time to really explore and investigate and allow these ideas to settle into our bellies. Okay, so this next section. All right, here it goes. Our hope to circumvent heartbreak in adulthood is beautifully and ironically childlike. Heartbreak is as inescapable and inevitable as breathing, a part and a parcel of every path asking for its due in every sincere course an individual takes. It may be that there may be not only no real life without the raw revelation of heartbreak, but no single path we can take within a life that will allow us to escape without having that imaginative organ we call the heart broken by what it holds and then has to let go. Ooh, that's a loaded paragraph. Did you ever consider that the real childlike aspect of heartbreak isn't how we handle it? It isn't how we react to it, but that we imagine we can get through life by avoiding it. I mean, talk about a hanged man moment, right? Turn the picture upside down and look at it from a completely different perspective. Like most of us, I shouldn't say most of us, I think it's common that we actually berate ourselves for being heartbroken, taking too much time. Right? Or not like seeing it before it happened, like all that stuff, right? We call ourselves childish and immature, right? Because it takes our energy or we can't be as motivated, right? But in truth, it's the backdrop around heartbreak that has this be important. I don't know. I was really moved by this. I would say this has never crossed my mind the way he wrote this piece, that it's actually childlike to imagine we can escape it. Right? Instead, we actually treat ourselves as children, and we talk to ourselves as if we're childish for feeling it. So interesting. So the last sentence about the heart being broken by what it holds and then has to let go of. Yeah, it's all there, I think. By what we hold and what we, I'm putting this in quotes, have to let go of. Right? This is the core power dynamic we have with life. It's like the entire compilation of the emotional body and the encompassing psyche doing life. Right? And in that, we are learning, maturing, evolving, and growing. So growth work at its core is about this. This idea that we have to let go of things, because I think right in here is where we often feel victimized. We often feel like someone did it to us or life did it to us, right? And what if, this just popped in my head, what if all this victim consciousness we're dealing with is because we actually can't handle our broken hearts or see them as the indicators, the meaningful indicators that they really are. So, growth work at its core is about all this. So his work had me thinking about how I've spoken and positioned heartbreak even in many of the radio shows that I've done. And I felt like it was transcendent, I think is the word for me, to, you know, like to actually think of it in these terms of what might really be going on, right? The control piece, noticing what I care about and how it informs my journey from this. And then the chastising myself and being impatient when my broken heart isn't ready yet to move on because I'm still holding on. So does this connect with you in your journey? Are you able to think about how you've made heartbreak the bearer of the bad news, right? The bearer of the not fun experience, the bringer of doom. I'm interested in that. If you are able to connect in some of the ways that I did, you might have different sentences, that strike you. All right. I'm going to read it one more time. Actually, no, you know what? We're going to go to break. And when I come back, I'll read it one more time and then flow into the next paragraph.
The best of holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
You came across someone struggling with hunger. How would you recognize them? Would you notice an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for summer break
because she may not be having lunch again until September?
Or a war veteran who's having a hard time landing
a job and getting back on his feet?
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org, brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
All right, we are back. I'm Sam Parrotto, and you're listening to Expedition Self. And tonight we're talking about heartbreak. And on the break, Diane decided to call in. So welcome, Diane. It's good to hear your voice.
Well, thank you. Can you hear me?
Completely.
Okay. Well, I just felt like I needed to jump in here and let you know that in the section that you have just finished, that it has made me think about heartbreak differently. I kind of grew up where you didn't really say that word. If you had a broken heart, it was usually around the fact that a loved one has decided to leave you. But what I think is coming through so clear is that it was part of my growth, that I was able to realize that with that heartbreak, it took me to a different level of even understanding it when it came around the second time. And so I never have thought about it that way. It was always around a relationship, but then I've lost animals. I've lost relationships with individuals that I wasn't married to. and never put together that each one of those instances of heartbreak had added to my growth process. And I thank you for that.
Well, I just have to say I'm so excited because that was kind of what happened to me too, as I was working with it. It was like, holy moly, like the way he writes about it really had it kind of pierce through, right? Some preconceived notion that we had. So I'm so excited for you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even if I think of, like I said, if I think about way back when I lost a dog, or I lost a best friend because they moved away and never kept in touch, I had to grow to get over that so that I could move forward. But I never would have thought that I would have called it a heartbreak.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
I just wanted to share that. Yeah.
All right. Appreciate you calling.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Well, that's what I'm hoping for. I say that's what we want to hear over here. Of course, you can have whatever your experience is. But so I'm going to reread that section, and then I'm going to do the next section. Our hope to circumvent heartbreak in adulthood is beautifully and ironically childlike. Heartbreak is as inescapable and inevitable as breathing, a part and a parcel of every path, asking for its due in every sincere course an individual takes. It may be that there may be not only no real life without the raw revelation of heartbreak, but no single path we can take within a life that will allow us to escape without having that imaginative organ we call the heart broken, but by what it holds and then has to let go. All right, now there's 3 more sections, and I'm going to try and get through all of them before the clock strikes 9, but I have to tell you, I don't think I'm going to. So I'm just going to kind of work alongside, and whatever we get left with, we get left with. In a sobering physical sense, every heart does eventually break as the precipitating reason for death, or because the rest of the body has given up before it and it can no longer sustain its steady beat. But hearts also break in an imaginative and psychological sense. There is almost no path a human being can follow that does not lead to heartbreak. A marriage, a committed vow to another, even in the most settled, loving relationship, will always break our hearts at one time or another. As mentioned, a successful marriage has often had its heart broken many times just in order for the couple to stay together. Parenthood, no matter the sincerity of our love for a child, will always break the mold of our motherly or fatherly hopes. I like this one. That's me. Hold on. Okay, here's him again. A good work, seriously taken, will often take everything we have and still leave us wanting. And finally, even the most self-compassionate self-examination should, if we are sincere, lead eventually to existential disappointment. This section, boy, it really culminated in that last sentence for me when he says, even the most self-compassionate self-examination should, if we are sincere, lead eventually to existential disappointment. This just brought so many moments of my life together, like how I grieve for lost moments and how it seems that if you are earnestly embracing the next layer of who you are, then you will feel some disappointment about where you were before. Just so everyone knows, I have a caller. Pauline, I'll get you in 2 seconds. Let me just finish this one little section. So I wanted to just talk about this disappointment, like where you were before and how this sense of loss, it dogs us as we move through life. And it put words on something that I don't think we realize when we're engaged fully in our own growth work. right? Again, we expect to be heartbroken with very clear losses like a spouse or a project, but I don't think we expect to be heartbroken as we move through our own development, because I think that's supposed to produce a win, right? A positive outcome or a new way of being that we're happy about, not heartbreak, right? I loved this sentence. I loved it. So, all right, Pauline, thank you for calling in. What do you have to share with us?
I have another take on the word heartbreak. It doesn't necessarily mean, I know most people suffer when they feel like they're heartbroken, but it's an expansion of the heart. If you heal from it and don't take it so personally, it might be like, if you look back, sometimes that has to have happened for you to open up to more love, more expansion of your heart.
Exactly. So absolutely.
I think I heard that from somebody else. It wasn't my wisdom or anything like that. At the time, I didn't really appreciate that one. When you're going through it, you don't really want to hear that. You know what I mean? But then I look back and I said, I know, like certain people, like I've been with over and over in lifetimes, and they're still not in my life right now, and it drives me crazy. But then I said, you know what? If I've been with this person in many lifetimes, I've experienced so much heartbreak with this person. And now I believe this new times that we're in, it's a whole new definition of love. It's not the way what we used to believe is love, expect of love. Maybe that's what our problem is. Like you're sharing the many points of, I didn't, come in the beginning, so I just heard the bits at the very end. Yeah. So I'm like, I got to go back and listen to it when it's replayed, because I know I always miss it. I never stay in one place long enough anyways. It's just not me.
I do, Pauline, I think you nailed it, which is that we're redefining our definitions of love. And actually that's part of this way of that we grow and develop, right? Is that we take a definition and we see how limiting it is, and then we expand it.
Self, expedition of the self. So I'm also talking about the couple love too, and that's first you got to, like you say, you always got to you have to be the example for the love that you want to attract.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's no point in doing anything but until you love yourself enough. And I still realize I'm still learning that.
I think, Pauline, I don't think you get done. In fact, I think the minute you get done, the minute you think you're done, you're not in the process, right?
Right. When you're in a couple, you got to figure out how to be your own self, right? In that couple, and not let the other one take over your life. Like you can't be who you should be on your own.
That's right. So well, listen, thank you so much for calling. I love it that I haven't talked to you in a while, so appreciate you finding your way back to the call.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you contributing to the conversation.
I like your new time. It's right in the evening. It's a perfect time to listen to you. Harder when you were in another time slot, I think. And you come after my other favorite.
All right. Thank you. Okay. So I want to just kind of go back, and it's awesome that we have people calling and that they're like gelling with this conversation. Thank you, David Whyte, right, for helping us. So I want to say growth work brings you to heartache, and then you have to fortify yourself to stay with it, because that heartbreak is showing you where to go on your journey and what it is that you really care about and how you're holding on to something that is no longer in your line of sight, right? Cool stuff. So, all right, I'm going to read this one more time. I think we're going to run out of time after this, so we'll see. In a sobering physical sense, every heart does eventually break, as the precipitating reason for death, or because the rest of the body has given up before it and it can no longer sustain its steady beat. But hearts also break in an imaginative and psychological sense. There is almost no path a human being can follow that does not lead to heartbreak. A marriage, a committed vow to another, even in the most settled loving relationship, will always break our hearts at one time or another. As mentioned, a successful marriage has often had its heart broken many times just in order for the couple to stay together. Parenthood, no matter the sincerity of our love for a child, will always break the mold of our motherly or fatherly hopes. A good work, seriously taken, will often take everything we have and still leave us wanting. And finally, Even the most self-compassionate self-examination should, if we are sincere, lead eventually to existential disappointment. This is one of the things I've noticed when attending his programs. It's the value of reading and rereading the same text. I don't know, something just happens within the mind and the heart, right? When you allow it the time to welcome the words and shape themselves into and through the self. So if you're someone who's less of a listener, I encourage you to read it. I think you can do that on YouTube. They actually let you do a transcript. Okay, I'm going to try to do this next one. This is his words. Realizing its inescapable nature, we can see heartbreak not as the end of the road or the cessation of hope, as the close embrace of the essence of what we have wanted or are about to lose. It is the hidden DNA of our relationship with life, outlining outer forms even when we do not feel it, by the intimate physical experience generated by its absence. It can also ground us truly in whatever grief we are experiencing, set us to planting a seed with what we have left, or appreciate what we have built even as we stand in its ruins. This is the way we can find the middle road. It's not the end of the road or the abandonment of hope for the future, right? By accepting that it's inevitable, as he says, it's the hidden DNA of our relationship with life. We can actually ally with it, right? So that we see it as a grounding and a substantive way to plant seeds, to create the next moment, to transcend the loss, and to emerge on our own road as clever solvers for the next opportunity. I think this is so true, right? That by relating to heartbreak as essential and wanted and helpful, we then acquire the gifts that the heartbreak has to actually offer to us. And in some ways, they're problem-solving gifts. In some ways, they open up the vista of what's possible for us, right? They aid us in moving forward in a renewed way. If we can keep the heart open to the heartbreak, we can keep the heart open to the heartbreak, and that is the challenge, right? That's the thing. To keep the heart open while it breaks, while it wants to hide, while it's railing against life, while it's fighting the hold that was pried out of its fingers, right? While we're feeling all these emotions that, by the way, we don't really have an easy time just feeling emotion, right? We have to witness ourselves going through it with a sense of personal grit so that we cheer ourselves on in the climbing through it and making our way over the next hill. There is the last paragraph. I'm going to try to read it to you, but I probably won't have many comments. If heartbreak is inevitable and inescapable, it might be asking us to look for it and make friends with it, to see it as our constant and instructive companion, and even perhaps in the depth of its impact, as well as in its hindsight, to see it as its own reward. Heartbreak asks us not to look for an alternative path because there is no alternative path. It is an introduction to what we love and have loved, an inescapable and often beautiful question, something or someone that has been with us all along, asking us to be ready to let go of the way we are holding things, and preparation perhaps for the last letting go of all. This is my favorite sentence in this section. Heartbreak asks us not to look for an alternative path because there is no alternative path. How often do we humans fight what is so about being human? I just want to say thank you so much tonight for being with me and for exploring this idea of heartbreak in a new way. And for my callers, Diane and Pauline, thank you so much. And I'm going to grab my wand and close out our show. Okay, here we go. I had to reach over. Here we go. Thank you and have a wonderful week. And I will see you back here on September 5th for the live show.